Cool. So I am Cody DePablo.
I am Michael Weatherly, and this is Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast.
Why are you such a... Okay, look, I sometimes I get into my executive frequency, okay, where things are just delivered very like staccato. Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast. This week on the show, we're talking Season 3, Episode 21, Bloodbath. A couple enter a room at a Navy lodge and find bloody human body parts. The team investigates. Gibbs and Ducky agree that the scene was a setup. An imbalanced former boyfriend stalks Abby. The gang chase the clues and figure them out. Today we are going to talk about episode 21, Bloodbath, of season 3. And we have a very special guest, not only a friend, a terrific writer, I think one of the super writers for NCIS, and one that you and I hold very close to our heart because he was a big voice for us.
A big
Mr.
voice.
Jesse Stern.
Jesse Stern.
Yes,
Huge
a
voice.
big voice for
I think
us.
that's a great way of putting it. You know, there was a complexity to his understanding of the sort of the nature of our dynamic, but also the nature of who Ziva was, where she was from, where she was grounded in Israel, what her experiences. He understood a lot of what she was withholding, what she would not reveal, why she would not, do things.
But also the complexity of these two characters
together,
like
right?
How
oil and water,
why
oil
it kind
and
of
water.
why that whole thing worked. Shall we do a little flashback?
Oh, let's go in the flashback machine. I love this part. We're both putting on our glasses. I love this.
At the time of this, yes, me too. At the time of this episode's release on April 25th, 2006, Osama bin Laden called for jihad against crusaders in Darfur.
Yes, he did. And Bruce Springsteen released his 14th studio album, We Shall Overcome, The Seeger Sessions.
Oh, God. Don't you just love him?
Yep.
I love him.
I like him
Tom
more than you know.
Cruise. Oh, I know.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise
who's that?
toured
Is he an actor?
Europe. Oh, my God. He's like, quintessential action
He
star.
looks a little like Mark Harmon.
That guy's been around. That guy's been around forever. And
what did he do on April 25th?
Tom Cruise toured Europe in preparation for the premiere of Mission Impossible 3.
He toured Europe
Wow.
in one day. That's the important thing to remember. It all happened on April 25th. He toured the entire continent of Europe in one day.
You're kidding me.
I'm kidding you.
Episode synopsis. Ducky and Jimmy try to solve a jigsaw puzzle composed of body parts. Someone tries to kill Abby, and we meet her crazy ex. Gibbs goes into angry dad mode. McGee tries to be supportive of Abby, and we glean some insight into their relationship. Ooh, ah. What do you remember about this episode? Bloodbath.
Ducky and Jimmy do the jigsaw puzzle thing with all the different pieces of the bodies.
So named by the Europeans in the late 1760s. They used to take maps and cut them up into irregular pieces for their children to reassemble.
And trying to count how many bodies
Can
there
I just say that this is an episode that I had not seen in a very, very long time. And I had so much fun watching P. Perrette do this.
Yes.
First of all, she was terrific in this. She was funny. She was compelling. She, you understand why the audience loved her so much. There's this sense of you just want to hug. You just want to hug her. You just want to tell her that everything's okay. I loved the scenes between Mark Harmon and her. I love how you really get to see and explore that kind of father-daughter relationship, which is really sweet. And that scene in the elevator when he's like, nothing's going to happen to you, Abs, I thought that was a really sweet moment.
Did you know that only 5 of the 2.5 million deaths every year occur in elevators?
No. Another thing about this episode, I'm wondering how deep to go here. Well, it is interesting that they have, because of course it just makes sense, but you never necessarily think about it. Someone needs to clean up the crime scene. there is crime. There are companies that deal with the hazardous materials of a crime scene cleanup.
Isn't that like a Pulp Fiction thing, the cleaner? I mean, it's a different thing, obviously.
Yes, but
the idea of the cleanup, the cleaner.
The cleanup. I will just say that one time I, in real life, was around a cleanup team, and it was my real life that there was something unfortunate that had happened. But the people gathered in the parking lot around the truck and the team, and I was dressed with gloves and a duct tape actually around the glove to the sleeve and everything. And they were like, and I was very sad, obviously, because someone had passed away, and everyone was like, "Denozo, are you guys shooting an episode?" Because it looked like a crime scene in real life. Just one of those things that happens where the lines blur, but sometimes the lines are very,
I'm
very
sorry
rigid.
you had to go through that.
Yeah.
That's not, I do remember that happening to you. I won't go into detail, obviously, because that is your private life. But I do remember you coming to set and just being very, very affected by that episode in your life. And you took it with you and you did something quite beautiful with it later on. Oh, my God. Okay, this is one of those things that happens during the show, which is a real character thing. And it's a very interesting beat because you get to see a part of McGee that you rarely see.
Where are you going?
To get my toothbrush.
No, you're not leaving the apartment.
Why not, McGee?
And that part of McGee that you rarely see gets activated by a person that he has very complex feelings for. So the idea that he has this like fatherly moment with her is the idea that, it's the thing that most women want to see when they are with someone they love and when they choose a partner, to feel protected, And it's such a cool thing because it is such I think it's such a cool McGee moment.
Yes. McGee is, again, a character that we keep peeling the onion and learning more and more and more about through, like we all do, through other characters, and seeing that true nurturing part of him, but that protective part of him. I like
Very much a protective part of him. And, that kind of fatherly thing is like, you don't open the door for anyone. And how funny is that she does it 3 times. And then the third or the second time she opens it, it's this ex-boyfriend who just so happens to be a little cray-cray.
In this way back that we're doing with this wonderful podcast and all of the stories that we've heard and the reminiscence that we've engaged in, I remember this episode because parts of it were shot where the wardrobe department was. They turned it into a set. We shot some of these sets on our stages in practical areas where people had to walk around and walk through. And so when we were shooting, I think one of the crime scene situations, you would have people coming in for a wardrobe fitting and they would have to walk through this set where there's like gore and blood and bodies and the whole thing. And they're like,
that is so weird that you remember that, because I don't remember this at all. And I think you and I have talked about that phenomena that happens every once in a while. You do so much of this that there are moments that you're like, that I don't know why, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah.
It's not weird. I remember the episode. I remember moments about the episode. And when I watched the episode, I remember thinking like, what a great episode and what a great moment to sort of see like McGee protect Paulie. And it was an Abby Sciuto centric episode, and it was so good.
And do you remember when we would go and shoot in different motels around the area?
Did you request this specific room when you called the lodge?
No, we requested the one with the eviscerated squirrels, but this is all they had.
What the hell kind of question is that?
And we would roll in.
I do remember that.
But there were people staying in the motel. So we would show up with all of our police cars and the MCRT, Major Case Response Team vehicle, and we're all out there with federal agent jackets. Can you imagine waking up in a motel? You went to bed the night before, and then when you get up in the morning, you're like, and it looks like maybe there's been a mass murder in your motel.
Yeah.
And there's like body bags and gurneys.
Thank God they quickly see just a bunch of cameras and a crew, and hopefully,
and then
because,
they see Mark Harmon.
We were shooting in California. They're like, oh, and then they see Mark Harmon. Oh my God, that's NCIS.
His eyes are so blue. This is a little thing that came up. If Gibbs has a father-like role on the team, how would you describe his individual father-child relationship with the children? And I think this is a great, it was a little question posed by some people on our staff. What do you think the different Gibbs relationship is? Does he have a favorite child?
You know what? I don't think he has a favorite child. And that's a really good question, because oftentimes I've thought, well, does he? And then the more you see the show go on, the more you realize that he has really deep love for all of these quote unquote children. It manifests very differently, but it doesn't mean he doesn't love them or he doesn't want to protect them. I think the entire thing with Gibbs is protection. The entire thing with Gibbs is no one will touch anyone, any of the guys on my team.
Or at least that's his goal and his aim, but you can't protect everyone. He couldn't protect Kate. He lives with not being able to protect his own wife and child. So he, as a father,
which is why that is emphasized, because he couldn't do it, he will always try very hard and put himself in, which is, we always go back and we analyze the sort of the honor code, right? Like his value system. And you and I have always talked about how at times it goes gray. And I think it's because, yet again, not to reference the movie, but the beekeeper, that whole thing about like law and justice, I think he will always go for justice. And I think at times he will go, I know that's the law. And I know that I'm supposed to follow the law because that's what I do. But every once in a while, I'm going to kind of turn a blind eye to the law, and I'm going to veer on the side of justice.
And again,
that's, I think, the thing.
Right. This doesn't mean that this is how we should conduct ourselves in everyday life. These are stories that are told for entertainment purposes. My disclaimer for...
I was listening to that podcast, and you know what? They encouraged me to do this.
No, we did not.
We did not.
And so that brings us to our very special guest, and who we will now talk with, executive producer, writer, and man with a beard, Jesse Stern.
No!
What's going on?
Gandalf!
I knew the best plan was not to warn you what I looked like.
No, we actually debated this right before we got a good look at you, and we were like, what's this guy going to look like?
Part of your introduction is that you're the Gandalf / Obi-Wan Kenobi of NCIS, and you've just absolutely solidified that.
Yeah.
Well, happy to deliver.
If NCIS were a cult, you would be its leader.
Just based on the beard. I want to know, where are you? Where the hell are you?
My girlfriend and I just spent 3.5 months in India, and we just arrived in Spain a couple of days ago.
We're in Spain, if you may disclose the location of your whereabouts.
We're on Ibiza, in the north of Ibiza right now.
Well, that's not bad. You're going to start partying soon, and that beard is going to come in very handy.
Yeah. They called me Alibaba in India. It was great.
It's been a while, huh? I think how long? How many years before? Since we've all three been together.
Oh, it had to be pre-pandemic.
Many years.
It's been so long that all three of us have seen gray come into our hair.
Well, and our beards.
Well, you don't have a beard.
Well, you don't know it. We're going to dive into why you were one of our favorite writers, and also why you were such a big part of creating this interaction between Tony Donoso and Ziva David, and also why you became such a passionate figure in our lives.
I'm comfortable covering all these subjects.
Yeah, okay. So let's begin with it's interesting. how did you find yourself coming into NCIS? What's your memories of the sort of point of entry?
You know, my first experience with NCIS, I remember when I was first having a shot at staffing on a show. I had an agent. I really, it was the first year I might have gotten a job. And they sent me a stack of scripts of all the pilots. This is back when there was still pilot season. And I remember reading all the pilots, and in the pile of pilots was an episode of JAG. And I remember being really confused. What is this JAG episode doing in here? And I read it, and I have a distinct memory of sitting in a chair in my front yard, my old house, reading this NCIS thing, and I didn't know what it was. And then, the show appeared on TV by magic, and I was staffed on a different show, and I met a producer who she was at Paramount, and she was like, they take pitches over at NCIS, and that was a big deal. A lot of places didn't have an open door policy like that to take pitches from aspiring writers, and I had never seen an episode of NCIS. And I remember distinctly saying, oh, I guess it's just like CSI in the Navy. And they sent me the pitch packet, and the first line of the pitch packet was, NCIS is not CSI in the Navy. So I really didn't know what it was. But I was sitting in my office trying to come up with stories, and I heard a story on the radio, and I thought that's a cool story. I could put that on the Navy base, and I bet I could pitch that to NCIS. And so I did. And I went in, I met with, I think it was Gil Grant, and I told Gil Grant, my ideas for pitches. One of them was the one I'd heard on the radio, and another one was about how koalas have fingerprints like humans and can frequently be mistaken for humans. So I had a story about a koala getting smuggled on board a submarine, and there was an outbreak of chlamydia because koalas carry chlamydia. And Gil thought that was terrible. And he was like, no, don't pitch that. Pitch the other one. So a week later, I'm sitting outside Don Bellisario's office waiting for a meeting, and I hear him in there. He's talking on the phone, and I hear him saying, yeah, I'm about to hear some pitches. And I distinctly heard pitches, plural. And I was like, I have one pitch. I'm about to walk in this room with one pitch. And I very quickly, I'm thinking in my head, what other things have I written that I can force into the Navy? And I go in there and I pitch Don, and I think I probably told you this story before, but I get about 5-10 minutes into the pitch, and his eyes close, and his head slumps over to the side, just drifts over, and I think I'm losing him. I think he's falling asleep, and so I speed up and I get to the twist and I go, bah, and his eyes shoot open and he shoots up and he goes, oh, I didn't see that coming. I'd like to see what happens. And then he started talking about other things, and I think he forgot I was in his office still, and a few minutes later he was at his computer researching Armenian genocide, and Gil Grant is like, let's go. And I'm like, what do you mean? Aren't we still in the meeting? He's like, no, it's over. You sold it. And we get out in the hallway, and he's like, how does that feel? I was like, how does what feel? He's like, you just made $30,000. And I was like, when? When did that happen? And he's like, well, when he said he wants to see what happens, that means now you go write it. And I was like, I've never seen the show. What do you mean go write it? And don't you have a staff? He's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You just go write it. So I went and I wrote an episode of NCIS. I watched a whole bunch of them. I wrote an episode of NCIS in a weekend. It was over Memorial Day weekend. Must have been 2004, 20 years ago. And I sent this script in, and I got back 2 notes. The 2 notes I got back were, Tony likes movies. That was the first note. And the second note was, and let's see if we can get a 4th act out of the kid. I think I was the kid. So I rewrote it. I sent it in. Don called me in for a meeting, and I'd already taken a job on another show, and he said, well, when that gets canceled, because they all do except for mine, you come back here and I'll give you a job. and I'm working on this other show. The other show was like the last place show on network television. We were getting no viewers. I think we've got like, I don't know, a couple million viewers. And a woman who lived on my street who worked on NCIS, she worked in the art department, she's walking her dog, and she sees me and she says, "Hey, we just got a script with your name on it." First I'd heard of it. I had no idea. They just had pulled it down off the shelf. John Kelly had given it a fourth act, and they shot it, and that was forced entry.
DeNozo.
I'm investigating here. These letters speak to the suspect's state of mind.
I've read them, and they're all pretty much the same.
Well, I've only read 2, and if you think they're all the same, then we definitely need to talk.
And I remember it aired the same night as the other show I was working on. The other show I was working on got 2 million viewers. That episode got like 14 or 15 million viewers. And this like light bulb went off inside my head of like, oh, that's better. Much better.
This one will repeat, and I'll make a WGA repeat salary on that one. Little did you know,
people actually cared about that show.
Yeah, it is the legacy of the show, and as you know, all around the world, people in different cultures, people for different reasons. But what would you say is that? I mean, you're in India. I know that the show was successful in India, Japan, all across the different parts of Asia and Africa and South America. I met a Russian couple in the lobby of a hotel in Paris. And when the woman started getting very excited and she ran up to her room so I could autograph her DVD collection that she had, he goes, "I want you to know you are ruining my entire vacation. She just sit and watch. She do nothing but sit and watch these fucking show, these Gibbs, these Abby with the pigtail, ridiculous. You are ruining my life with this shit." And I was like, thank you. That's awesome. You mean your Russian wife is interested in crimes in the Navy and Marine Corps?
You and I have probably kept in touch because of hotels that I've been in where I turn on the TV, and I remember it happening in Barcelona. It happened. I think it happened. I was in Italy one time. And I turn on the TV, and it's one of ours. And you know, you don't even have to change the channel. It's just, I think it's perennially on every hotel television.
What was the show that you watched? You watched every show. Was it Hill Street Blues or MASH? Or you watched and you were like, this is the show. It has a sort of revolving door of characters, but the tone is the show.
That was, I think it was after season 6 when the show was the #1 show. And I remember just pacing around all the time because there were a bunch of people who worked on the show who didn't want to be #1 because they were like, okay, if we get to #1, there's only one way to go, and that's down. And I would have these arguments in the hallway. I was like, no, get to #1 and just be #1 forever. And I was pacing around trying to figure out, okay, we're at season 6. We're going to get to season 7. But how do we get past season 10? And you and I would have these conversations of like, what does it take to get past season 10? Because there's not a lot of shows do that. And I was talking about Law and Order all the time, and I was talking about MASH. And so I went and I watched every episode of MASH over the summer because I was like, it's similar. You know, we have MASH takes a drama and puts it inside a comedy. We were taking a comedy and putting it inside a drama. You know, there was the same life or death stakes. There was a military component. There was commentary on America. It was character oriented above all else, and the relationships driving everything. And I was like, okay, well, how did MASH get, how did they survive, losing major characters and finding new people to take their place and elevate the show still? So yeah, I watched every episode of MASH. I want to
bring something to the forum. Your process as a writer was unlike a lot of other writers. You really became quite the method writer during your writing bouts, which could, by the way, last for days upon days with no sleep. And then you would show up to like a table read looking, like you haven't taken a shower and you're wearing like a hoodie and you're pissed at the world and somehow you're pissed at us for no reason. and then we'd read this fabulous script. But you really kind of lived these episodes as you were writing them. And I remember once trying to like kind of get in your head and just say like, dude, why are you so like, why are you so caught up in this? And you were like opened up your eyes. And it was this thing that you were trying to explain, that was the way that you really kind of lived it.
Unfortunately, and I haven't been able to correct this, there's really only one way I know how to do anything. It's all in. It's just, and I had to really care. And there was a moment, on NCIS, I remember exactly where I was. We were still at the old Sunset Gower Studios. And I used to pace around there were all sorts of hidden tunnels and passageways in Sunset Gower left over from the Adolf Zukor days. And I used to kind of, find my way around the back of the studio. And I found this secret bathroom. So it was like nobody else went there.
Did that become your office?
It was my like sanctuary. When the office was too insane, I would go to this bathroom. And I remember I was working my way there and I was thinking of a story. And I had this moment where it really in that moment shifted from being a job to being, home, where I was like, oh, I can tell my stories here. Like this, anything I'm coming up with, I can tell it here. There's an avenue for it. There's a character for it. There's a place for anything that was popping into my head. And from that moment on, and I think that was in season 4 or 5, it had to be everything or nothing.
I think that was the difference because I have to say, like, of course, we loved all the writers, but there was something about you, and I think I could speak for Michael as well. You had become like a friend in many ways, and I knew, for example, that when you were going to take a script and you were going to write my character in particular, or Michael's character in particular, I know that you had an insight to our voice, which to us became this really kind of thrilling thing. Like we grew as actors with your scripts because you tapped into the essence of what we believed was, I could say it for me, for Ziva, what I believed the character was. And so when you left, I remember thinking, this is a huge loss. And I remember feeling like it's a huge loss. I just lost somebody that really wrote the essence of what I believed the character was really well.
Okay, now I'm going to cry.
No, I didn't mean it that way. But I think Michael and I really thought of you as not just our friend, but somebody that really understood the relationship of these two characters really well, the intricacy of it, the complexity of it, the thing that made it sort of dynamic, the thing that made us both kind of tick. And it was a really it was a balancing act that wasn't as simple as people thought it was, and you got that. And I mean, without shame in the game, you were one of my favorite writers. And when you left, for me personally, it was a huge loss.
Well, there was a thing that happened in there. And to go back to what you were saying about when I would show up at the table where he's looking exhausted, it wasn't by choice that I was writing like 7 or 8 episodes a season. Like 6 and 7, there was people at that point thought that NCIS was a well-oiled machine. And I think you too can probably speak to the fact that it was perennially chaotic. Like there was always chaos, no matter what era.
I think the chaos served a little bit of that tension that was also bred within the show. You know what I mean? Like it kind of kept that bar like vibrating at that frequency, because if not, there was no tension.
I do take your point there, Jesse, because I've heard so many people come in. We'd had Matt Jones the other day. We talked to Matt, and he was basically saying when he walked onto the set and he looked around and he saw that we were out of our fucking minds, he was like, oh, this isn't, and there wasn't another, and I've, before that and subsequently done other shows. I mean, when I got out of the car in the morning and walked onto the set, oftentimes I had kind of glanced over and kind of reviewed, like I knew we were in the squad room and I knew, but Mike Archer, my stand-in, would hand me the sides and he'd go, big speech on page 2. And I go, oh, shit. And then I'd kind of like lift it up and look at it because we were going to be shooting it in less than an hour.
Oh,
right?
I had one of those mornings. I remember I'm driving up to Valencia and I get a call from First AD that's like, Paulie's on set and she's calling for you. She needs you. And I'm like, I'm 15 minutes away, and I'm, pedal to the metal, flying up there, and they call again. She's like, Paulie really needs you. She's calling for you. You got to get over there. And I park the car. I run out of the car. I run over to the lab set. I get to the door. I'm standing there. They've just finished, blocking rehearsal. It's one of these things where it's Abby in the lab with one of these, and then one line from Gibbs, and then another one of these. And I'm saying, I'm like, what is it? And she looks over at me and she just goes, fuck you. And I just fall over. I just fall over laughing. I'm like, that's it? She's like, yeah, that's it. You can go. It was the sum total of the conversation.
You were one of the few writers that we could have an emotional, friendly, safe battle with about what's going on in the script, about what served the characters. And you were, wait, was there like a story at one point that I always pitch you shit for that you like threw a chair? Wait, remember like in the cafeteria, like you grabbed a chair or something? I was like, Chelsea, like you don't have to throw a chair. Like, you don't remember this? I remember it clearly. And you were like, I'm not throwing a chair. Like you were almost correcting the behavior. You're like, no, that's not happening. I remember you as being very combustible, very like intense about it. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like I've never met a writer who's just like, so intense about stuff that it was very different.
That was, to be honest, that was why I left, was because I couldn't do that anymore. Like you and I would get into these things, all three of us, we would get into these things and we would mix it up. And me and Binder would get into these things and we would mix it up and we would like really defend our positions really aggressively. And as a result, we would dig something deeper out. And we kept trying, crazier shit. We kept trying to go deeper and see what else the show could do. And eventually, the administration's changed over there and, sometimes the corners get knocked off of things and ultimately got to a place where it wasn't happening anymore. Like,
right.
The moment for me where I couldn't do it anymore was on Michael's first directing episode.
Liver?
Spleen.
Of course.
Interest?
Psycho.
Aren't they all?
The movie, Palmer.
And there was a scene in there where Gibbs was supposed to hit Tony in the back of the head way too hard. And it was witnessed, by the new agent. And it was going to play as this sequence where she comes up to Tony afterwards and it's just like, what the fuck is that? This guy's hitting you in the office? You're going to put up with that? And it was to start this entire dynamic of like Tony questioning whether he wants to be subservient to Gibbs anymore, whether he wants to break out on his own. Here's this other woman who's got her own team. He's going to start to gravitate towards her. And then her entire team was going to get killed. And Tony was left like, oh my God, there's still things to learn from Gibbs. So it was violent and it was emotional. And the entire arc only worked if there was this traumatic moment between Gibbs and Tony. And I spent hours in the editing room on that scene, just on the beat by beat of it, just exactly how he's going to hit him. And it was funny because when we were shooting that scene, Michael's directing, Harmon was in a contract negotiation. So in between, he's out on the phone with his agent and with Les Moonves, and he's coming back in, and he was putting some stank on that head slap.
Have you noticed the new girl likes to shower here before she goes home?
Hey, did you hear me?
So we had some really good violence on camera, and because Michael was directing himself, he was encouraging. You were encouraging him. You were like, yeah, no, that's not true.
Well, I mean, like you say, there were a lot of moments there where, like, and I can say again, like Mark Harmon would be really nice to somebody as you were getting, like some guest star actor kid doing an interrogation scene. You'd be like, where are you from? He's like, I actually grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. He's like, oh, Bethesda, Maryland. So you have military in the family? Or he's like, actually, with it's Defense Department and it's the State Department. And, oh, okay. But serving military, it's like, no, more than, and he would lure them into this false sense that like Mark Harmon gave two shits about Bethesda, Maryland, or where they were from, whatever. And he'd lull them into almost a kind of like, wow, I can't believe how nice Mark Harmon is. And then action, Billy Webb's got his Steadicam on, and Mark goes, wham, and smashes the table. And you just see the kid go, and he goes, so you were on that ship and you didn't see anything. That's your story and you're sticking to it. Try me. And like, this kid's like, is that the first line of the scene? Which it is. It's just when they rehearsed it, that's not how it was like, so this is your story and you're sticking to it? Well, once you add violence to the table and Mark Harmon's eyes staring at you, it's a different scene. And that was what the show, to your point about the head slap, it was like a destabilizing moment, a holy shit moment. When Ziva pushes Tony to the ground and takes her gun out and puts it in his chest. Like, that's your partner. Like, and you're at Mossad and no one's going to stop it. They're like, well, that Ziva is doing that thing again.
Was that Aliyah? God, I remember breaking that episode.
It's not that he's dead. It's that your Mossad boyfriend got his ass kicked by a chump like me.
You took advantage of him.
He attacked me. What was I supposed to do?
Yeah, that was a good one.
But you also would kill characters.
Which takes us
not
to
just guest star characters, but you would take you would take us. I think Mike Frank's "Dead in the Rain on a Street" comes to mind.
Oh my God, that was one of those ones. Gary Glassberg, rest in peace, handed me that assignment. He said, "We're going to kill Mike Frank," and Frank's hadn't been in an episode that season, and I was just like, "Are you kidding? We're going to bring the guy in just to kill him off?" I'm like, that everyone's going to see it coming. It's not the way to do it. So I tried to talk him out of that decision, but he was determined that we were going to kill Mike Franks. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, and that was my last script, I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in a
swan song, right?
Swan song, yeah.
My name is Mike Franks. I figure I've got one more fight left in me.
I'm going to do it in a way you don't see coming, and I'm going to do it in a way where the actor can come back.
Well, I mean, he was one of my favorite characters.
Not a lot of people smoke on camera, but when you see Muse Watson, like
with that voice,
I remember having to kill Shepherd, Lauren Holly,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was with Judgment Day, that was a strange time because that was like right after we came out of this writer's strike, and we had to finish up like 9 episodes in the time that we had to do 6. And I just had back surgery. So there was I couldn't walk. And so the kid from the office, one of the PAs, would pick me up at home and take me to the office. And I would lay on the couch in the office with like 3 whiteboards. And I think Binder was writing Judgment Day and Shane was writing something. And we would walk around. I would push these whiteboards down the hallway and like try to figure out which actors we can have on which days because we're shooting 2 units and a splinter all the time. And in the middle of that, we're like, okay, this is Lauren Holly's last episode. Yeah. And I just remember saying, okay, well, Blaze of Glory. She's got to go out and Blaze of Glory.
And she did, she did. Question, Jesse, favorite NCIS episodes? Which ones come to mind?
That I wrote or that somebody else wrote?
That
Whatever.
You wrote.
Well, okay, we could do both. Okay.
The favorites that I wrote, Truth or Consequences, Heartland, and probably Cloak. Those were, I think they were turning points for various reasons.
It is justified.
Get over yourself.
I have. Truth or Consequences was one of my favorite episodes in the history of NCIS.
You know, very rarely does a plan come together as well as that one did. Like, I remember pitching that episode to Shane at the end of season 6, and pitching that, you know, Ziva was going to be abducted. And, you know, Shane, to his credit, whenever I would pitch him things about Ziva, he would get such a long view. He would always get this long view. You know, Cody and I had a conversation about singing very early on. I think it was in season 4, maybe in between season 4 or 5, around season 5. And I didn't know that you could sing. And it just, you know, took root. And North and I started talking about it, and we were like, oh, that would make a great image for the season premiere, is you're in this nightclub and you come up on this, you know, the singer. I think we even pitched a blue dress, if that's possible. And you reveal it's Ziva.
Is made from honey, slow and sweet. Only the fools know what it means.
And then the thing blows up. And I remember North and I pitching that to Shane, and Shane's immediate reaction was like, he would do this thing where you'd look out the window and you'd like see the chessboard in the distance. And he was like, well, then we're going to have to do Tiva. And I remember just being like, what do you mean then we're going to have to do Tiva? What's wrong with that? Wait a second. Aren't we already doing it? Hasn't that been happening since Undercovers? I mean, I wasn't here season 3, but I'm pretty sure that's already been moving. And he would take this long view on that. So I remember that was a big deal when he was like, okay, we're going to do that.
You know, that's really funny you bring that up, because I remember when they said, hey, you know, we want you singing, you know, and what you don't know is that Ziva sings. And I was like, oh, come on, really? Like, really? Like, I was in a way, I was like, what? He doesn't sing. Like, I was like, Cody sings, Ziva doesn't sing, you know, and I was kind of a little bit like, I resisted it. I think it was actually a really great moment, but there are a lot of moments that I resisted because, well, just because my instinct was to say, like, why should she sing? I mean, she's not like a, you know, it's not like a musical about assassins, you know what I mean? But anyway, I went with it.
Getting into your process and understanding like what would fire your jets, like the things that you would get excited about, it was really fun. Because, you know, it's a 22, 24 episode season. It was a marathon every season. And, you know, there's always these ups and downs. There's times where people need a rest, you know, and that's a good opportunity for an episode where you're just, you know, servicing the plot. It's not heavy on your character, but too many of those in a row and you get bored and you start to tune out. So I remember just constantly like monitoring where you guys were at, like in terms of hunger. Like, do you want to eat right now or do you want to sit and rest for a second? And Cody, I remember having conversations with you where like, I was like, do you want to know what's coming? Because Michael always wanted to know what's coming. Michael always wanted to know.
But Michael and I were very different people, but also worked very much the same, you know?
You would not really want to know what was coming like 3 episodes down the line unless it was something you needed to know. And it was like, if you really needed to know it. And I remember when there was a big Cody or a big Ziva thing coming, I'd be like, all right, there's a thing coming. It's about 3 episodes off. And I would see you get like excited again. All right. So okay, what's coming down the line? And then you would start asking me questions. I was like, oh, okay. But then I remember when I pitched the Truth or Consequences of Shane's immediate reaction being like, you know what this means for Ziva? Like she's abducted in a terrorist camp, and telling you about it, and you had the same reaction. Like, you know what they do to women in these terrorist camps?
I do remember having this conversation with somebody on the show, and I remember saying something along the lines of, you do know what happens to women, and their answer was like, oh no, these are very good boys. And I remember
these are the good terrorists.
And I just remember going, nah, And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And, you know, no harm done, obviously. And then I just kind of went back to my trailer and I was like, I can't go that route. Like there's only one. There's only, and then of course, you know, the other thing is if they're not going to write for it, then at some point you have to make a decision. Where does it live? You know, and if you're just going to pretend that everything's okay, when does she crack? Yeah. Because you can't possibly go through something like that and pretend that nothing's happened. You can do it for a little while and then you crack.
That was one of the best conversations that Binder and I had, you know, and we used to, you know, we would write separately, you know, and every now and again, Steve would call me in, like ask for a twist in the fourth act, like if something I hadn't read, and I would call him in and ask for something. But we never wrote together on a script. But season 7, I did Truth or Consequences, and he was doing the second episode. We knew, okay, you have to address this. And we had so many conversations. It was like, we would go back and forth to the point where like a couple of the other writers, like George and Frank, started mediating because me and Steve were just like screaming at each other in the office of like how it would play. And it was funny because like we didn't care we were screaming at each other. We were like brothers, but it got a little loud. So I remember ultimately sitting in an office, the entire staff is in there, and it's just, you know, me and Steve going back and forth, and George and Frank being like, Steve's the one who's got to write it. He's going to have to write it. So he's going to get to choose how it goes. And we found, he found really best kind of, you know, direction.
You know, when I think about Truth or Consequences and our conversations about it before then, at the time, and afterwards, now in retrospect with all these years, and how important also Dennis Smith was as part of that process.
Oh, yeah.
The show was, because NCIS LA was premiering after us, there was an opportunity for a new audience that might be coming in to check out LL Cool J and Chris O'Donnell, who maybe weren't native to JAG or the NCIS shows on USA Network, which had become a thing at that point. So there was this notion of the show being a kind of soft entry point. We're going character by character. We're telling you who everybody is. We're telling you what the dynamics are. But there was also trying to replace Ziva. And that is subtly, or not so subtly, saying she's irreplaceable. Like, we can have let me show you how hard it is to, and so it was kind of like going into the special sauce ingredient list, and you were kind of elucidating, like, this is why Abby is important. This is why Ducky is important. This is why, and to me, the cherry on top is magical Gibbs. Because Gibbs suddenly appearing a mile and a half away and shooting
the hero,
guy right through and then appearing seconds later as if he was the Bionic Man in his ghillie suit. But that's magic Gibbs. And if you know, I've had people say, like, there's no way he could have made it that far. It's like, but that's the show. And Dennis Smith, an ornery character in his own right, and also has been a guest on this show. But Dennis protected your words and your script and your vision. Do you feel that by doing these things in kind of one shot?
You know, Dennis and I got on so well, and there have been multiple times working with Dennis where I've been in the meat grinder over a script, you know, because you got to pitch these things, you got to write the outline, you got to get approval, everybody's got to sign off. And they frequently would have things in it that people had questions about, of like, is this the way to go? Is this going too far? Is this violating, you know, whatever? And Dennis, there would always be a time during pre-production where he would just look at me and he would just say, I got it. And I was done. Like, I was done. Like, I didn't have to work anymore. Like, if Dennis got it, I didn't have to do anything. So, like, I didn't really have to show up to the set when we were shooting. You know, when he got it, it was locked.
And you saw two transitions. You saw from Bellisario to Shane and from Shane to Gary. What was that transition like from Don to Shane that you remember?
Oh my God. When I remember the day Don was walking out, and he walked from office to office to see everybody. It was the first time he'd ever been in my office. And he walked in, and I was like, so you're really leaving, huh, Don? And he's like, yeah. And I said something like, well, maybe this was the only way to get out of here. Like as if he would have stayed until the grave. And he looked at me like he wanted to crush me. Like he wanted to absolutely destroy me. But then, he's like, man, maybe you're right. Maybe there's something else to do. And he left, and I went in to meet with Shane because John Kelly left at the same time. And we're talking about my favorite episodes. At that point, all my favorite episodes were the ones that broke the formula, the Kill Aries and Bête Noire. That was another one I liked. The ones that were different, and they were all John or Don episodes. And I said to Shane, I was like, who's going to write all the ones that Don and John used to write? And Shane goes, I don't know, maybe you. And I just started pitching. I just started pitching for the next 45 minutes. I was like, I took him seriously. I was like, oh, really? Like that, there's an opening there? And I just started pitching. And in the next 45 minutes, I pitched 9 episodes that we do in the next season and a half.
Wow.
I pitched what became like Heartland, Requiem. I pitched a thing with Tony's father that ended up becoming Gibbs's father. I pitched like Cloak and Dagger. I pitched all this stuff just off the, Corporal Punishment. I think that was another one I pitched at the time. Like this is what I do. And then
what we realized is that Kill Ari 1 and 2 is the beginning of season 3, and Hiatus 1 and 2 is the end of season 3. And so Don bookended his season with 2-parters, which is one of the reasons I think that season stands and holds together so well. Season 3 is a really kind of kooky ride. It's got model behavior in it, which is like, hi, David North. It's totally insane. I mean, and then it has...
That's a perfect example, though. He wrote that on spec as a PA on the show. It was in a drawer, and the show hit the wall and didn't have anything to shoot. And North pulls it out of a drawer and goes, what about this? And they shot it. And that was how he became a writer on the show. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere else.
And now the showrunner of NCIS Origins.
Yeah. What a story.
Which I cannot wait. I cannot wait to watch and see how that thing unfolds. That's going to be fantastic. Well, I find this kind of a fascinating place to wind it up, which is there's no question as in terms of like the architecture plans of Tony and Ziva, which, sort of began with an audition where Cody and I and our temperaments clashed and met and have continued to flash around each other. But you were very much a part of that initial architecture, and so many of the, it wasn't heart to heart. It wasn't some Joni Loves Chachi shallow kind of thing. It's and I think anyone that has an understanding of the show, I met a 22-year-old young lady the other day in Boston who freaked out about the new NCIS Tony and Ziva show. And I said, what do you think of the title? And she said, it's fantastic. It's what it is. Tony and Ziva. If you know what Tony and Ziva is, it's the best title ever because that's what you want. Sometimes you want a pastrami sandwich and you don't need to call it like the club footer. Just call it a pastrami sandwich. But the characters, Tony and Ziva, so, each of them is not some linear, one-dimensional thing. And you were such a huge part. I would say that Don definitely was in love with the characters and the
he was
exploration of that. But now that Cody and I are going to Budapest to start our the thing that, how many times did the three of us sit and talk about how can we make a Tony and Ziva show? What would that look like? How could we do it? And for us to actually have the opportunity for Paramount Plus to make that And Dennis Smith is directing the last 2 of the 10.
Amazing.
And your name, I want you to know, was part of so many of the conversations that Cody and I had.
Oh my God. So many.
And in talking to John McNamara, where, he was like, oh, buddy, I just watched Truth or Consequences. Holy shit. And I was like, yeah, holy shit. By the way, there's a few other ones. And so I think for the writing staff of this show, there are, I think your episodes are the ones that are the real salient points. And so I hope in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we all do get to be involved in this world together again. Hopefully we create some good space and some good energy, and we bring all of these incredibly positive stories into the next, whatever you want to call it, the next chapter of an NCIS multiverse. But I just want to thank you for always being the shining North Star of those characters and of all the stuff we talked about, fighting for your truth, fighting for your point of view. And also when it's time to go away and you see that a turn needs to be made, get in that van, speak clearly and honestly, and then see you later. I think you're just a class act, Mr. Stern, and I love you.
I love you too.
Did you
man.
think this was going to be such a love fest?
I can't believe you guys are doing this. Well, this was bizarre.
It's always bizarre when the 3 of us come together. It's bizarre, but it's loving. It's lovingly bizarre.
Really a lot of fun.
Cody DePablo, was that incredible?
Oh my God. Isn't it so funny how sometimes you're like, hey, we're going to talk to somebody that we haven't spoken about for a long time. And then all of a sudden you get in the room and you're like, love fest.
Love to the fest, to the love.
And this is a person who was my friend. He was your friend. He was a very good friend of yours. And I know for a fact that you were such close friends.
That when I got a DUI, he picked me up from the police station.
Well, but not only that, he was such a good friend that you are able to have horrible disagreements in life and get back together and do a podcast with them and still love them and honor them for who they are and were.
Absolutely. And a lot of gratitude as people with strong opinions. We can occasionally, push a boundary, but I think there's nothing in life that has the rigidity or the straight line or the absoluteness, even afterlife, some would argue, not to get all Shirley MacLaine about it, but
please, let's get Shirley MacLaine about it because I do love her so much.
But I do think that one of the things that we learn as we get older is that fear is can really drive a wedge.
Oh, yeah.
Between you and other people or you and yourself. And I know that over the last 7 years, as we all went through COVID-19, we all went through lots of different wild political and cultural shifts and movements. The world has had a big shakeup.
Can I say something that I no one knows I'm going to say it, and I'm going to go out on a little limb here. You are really good about keeping in touch with people. And one of the main reasons we have some of the guests we've had here, it's because you are able to grab your phone and text them. And most of the people that we've had get back to you immediately because they love you.
That is a lovely thing to hear from a friend. And I have an attitude of gratitude today.
That's a good one, an attitude of gratitude.
That's
and
where
by
I
the
live.
way, it'll keep you on your toes. Hi!
Mm-hmm. I think
you have to continue being a good friend, and that's just the way it goes, kids.
Yes. Robert Downey Jr. said something in an interview I read recently. He said, if you want to make a friend, be a friend.
Yeah.
And something else was, if you want forgiveness, in life, then forgive yourself first. You know, it's I think a lot of our pointing finger world that we live in right now gets in the way of being able to understand somebody else's point of view, even if it doesn't align with ours. And we should all be able to sit at a big table, and there's a lot of atrocity and a lot of horror, and there's a lot of shadow in the world. We have to acknowledge it, and then we have to, you know, without being kumbaya, we got to hold hands and we got to march into the darkness together, because otherwise, what's a heaven for? Cote de Pablo. I guess
not
that's
deep at all. That was
not
as
deep at all.
superficial as it gets. And on that note,
okay, kids, it is game time, and today we are playing Hijack Hijinks. Kidnappings and taking hostages happens at an alarming rate in the NCIS universe in this game. Let's see if you can name these kidnapping movies.
all right, great. So in this one, Tom Hanks gets kidnapped by pirates. Oh, Cast Away. I know this one. Correct?
No, Captain Phillip.
Oh, shit. All right, there you go. Next. In this one, oh, God, you read it.
Okay, ready? In this one, the aggrieved father of a kidnapped girl has to use a very particular set of skills to get her back.
Oh, I know this one. This is Liam Neeson, right?
Correct.
Taken.
Nice.
Love it. Brie Larson won an Oscar for this one, where she raises her son whilst being held captive in a shed.
Do you remember that? Wasn't that based on a
I think this was based on a real story.
on a real, like, in Germany or something?
Yes, it was. I researched this for a while. It was really
you?
dark. I did.
Well, if you want to know the name of the movie, you just have to think of where he kept her.
Basement?
Room.
The Room. Is that what it's called? Room?
The Room, yeah.
The Room?
No,
Oh,
not
wow.
The Room. I think it's just called Room.
Yeah, because there's another one that's called The Room, and you and
The
I have
Room.
talked about it. That's another one. In this one, she isn't actually murdered or kidnapped, just gone.
Well, it's called Gone Girl.
Gone Girl. Okay. In this one, Denzel Washington plays an alcoholic, retired CIA agent who goes on a killing spree when a girl he was tasked to protect is kidnapped.
Is that Equalizer?
You know, I'm not sure.
Man on Fire.
There you go.
Man on Fire. Directed by Tony Scott, right?
Tony Scott. How about we go into some fan questions, Cherie?
The FQ section?
Yeah, the FQ. Ooh.
I've just decided to give it that. All right.
You're just going to...
Linda, Johnson City, Tennessee, writes, I think I had the same ex as Abby, LOL. In all seriousness, though, I really liked his performance. Do you remember acting with him?
I thought he was terrific.
Yep.
I thought he was absolutely terrific.
Fantastic performance. Bo from Newark, Germany. No, that's Delaware. DE is also Germany, I think, in Europe. Abby's crazy ex is amazing. I can definitely see them together. It made me think, what do you think is the type of the main characters on the show? Gibbs, Ziva, Ducky. Ooh. Okay, so I think Gibbs' type is his late ex, Shannon, and later seasons, of course, when Pam Dauber came on the show, were probably his type. I know that when he was brain gaming with Jamie Lee Curtis, that was, I think he likes strength, first and foremost. I think he likes humor and people who will meet him at his level.
But let me say this. The younger Gibbs had a very beautiful, vulnerable, sweet wife.
Yes.
That he protected. And so it was, I think as he got older, I think he was able to be inspired by obviously different types of women. And that's also very nice.
I think you and I know each other's types. We got a spinoff that we're going to make all about it.
You're my type.
You're my type too.
You're my type.
And I think McGee's type is, again, explicated through the show. I think that ultimately beautiful Delilah shows up and gives McGee, it gives him his heart, gives him that real grounding and that sense of strength and that what we all hope for when we find our other.
Johnny, Carlsbad, New Mexico. Abby is definitely Gibbs's Achilles heel. Do you think Gibbs loves Abby more than Tony, Ziva, or McGee? I think we've answered that question.
You know what?
I don't think there's
no favorites.
No, I don't think so. I think there's no favorites here. I think there's a lot of love to go around, and I think as a father, he will protect all of his chickens, and I think he shows us continuously that he does.
That's what a fox does, is protects his chickens. Wait, that's not what a fox does.
Gibbs rule of the day, rule number 16. Do you know? Do you know which one it is?
Always wipe twice.
Oh, God. If someone thinks he has the upper hand, break it.
What?
I'm going to take I can't even, this one's a hard one.
Yeah.
This one's a hard one.
I do not advocate violence just because you think somebody has the upper hand. But these are Gibbs rules. These are not my rules or your rules.
I don't, it's very funny. This one doesn't resonate with me. There are some that sort of come in and I have a lot to say about. This one, I'll just read it. I'll let other people sort of go hey, what are your thoughts on this? I have very little thoughts on this. I just don't share in this particular.
Right. I mean,
it just doesn't, I'm it's a little intense. It's a little on the aggressive side. And
yes,
depending on the circumstance, I would agree. But just reading it, it scares me a little bit. So I think I'm just going to transition out of this.
Right. I come from a more Roger Moore place with my, if someone has the upper hand, find a way to silkily, smoothly get the heck out of there. I'm not sure I did that the other night at dinner, but I tried.
Michael Weatherly, what are we doing next week on Off Duty?
Cody, before I tell you about next week, I just want you to know, in the 1,000+ episodes of NCIS that exist in the universe, if you want to watch them, you can go to Paramount Plus, and you can watch NCIS, NCIS Hawaii, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS Sydney, and all of them live on that beautiful streaming platform.
It's called the Weatherly Plug Machine, and he is here and he does it well.
They were going to call Paramount Plus NCIS Plus at one point. And if you want to watch new episodes of NCIS, of course, you go right on over to CBS or wherever NCIS airs in whatever country you are watching or listening from. Now, next week on Off Duty, a drug seizure for the team goes disastrously wrong when the suspect dies in Ziva's custody. Things escalate further when Jenny Shepard is kidnapped by the man's brother, who contacts NCIS with an ultimatum. His brother and the drugs must be returned to him within 2 hours or Jenny will die. Sheesh. Why can't we just be friends? It's season 3, episode 22, Jeopardy.
Hi, I'm Cody DePablo.
And I'm Michael Weatherly. And this is
Off Duty.
Talk about how important today's episode is.
Well, first of all, we have Tamara Taylor, who is, we do, and she's awesome. We're going to go through episode 22 called Jeopardy, and that's from season 3. And I don't think there's any more to say.
So let's just get right to it. Let's make the rubber meet the road. Let's
get after it.
Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast. Today on the show, Season 3, Episode 22, Jeopardy. A suspect collapses and dies while in the custody of Ziva, and she becomes a suspect rather than an investigator. The director disappears, and her driver dies. Ducky clears Ziva, and Gibbs and his gang rescue Jen.
Okay, great. So let's go into Flashback. What do you think, Cherie?
I am all about the back of the Flash.
Okay. At the time of this episode's release on May 2nd, 2006, the Alaska Aces defeated the Las Vegas Wranglers in triple overtime.
Okay,
don't ask.
No, I'm just going to ask you, is that true or false?
No, that's true.
Okay. And who are the Alaska Aces?
Oh, come on.
Well, you know what the Las Vegas Wranglers are.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was triple overtime, and that's what's important. British
Yes.
Prime Minister Tony Blair's Labour Party suffered one of its worst electoral defeats, losing more than 200 council seats in the 2006 UK local elections.
Picasso's Dora Maar with Cat was sold at an auction for $95,216,000. Worth it?
I don't know. Let's call Mark Harmon and ask him because he's the one who bought it. Just kidding.
And that's how rumors get started.
That's how rumor. That's what we
And
like.
I think you'll like this next one because it's a movie reference.
Mission Impossible 3 made $47.7 million in its opening weekend, a solid opening, but almost $10 million lower than the franchise's previous films, and that's why they never made another one.
Really?
No, they keep
They made
making
like 17,000 more.
It just
I was
goes,
gonna
to,
say,
it
wait,
just
this
goes
is
to show you, you can make less money with the third one, and they're still going to be making them 20 years later.
Can you give me a brief synopsis of this episode, Shelley? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
I really liked it. I think director Shepard was very good in this episode.
You did me a favor.
Well, let me do you another one. You're a smart guy, James. You know this isn't going to end well. They are going to kill you.
I was particularly into that performance.
I like the fact that she's withholding something, and I think you and I both know what that withholding is about.
Yes, yes.
And it's a
but
pretty big thing, and I think she touches upon it in a rather subtle way.
And I think Mark Harmon doing the Gibbs thing again, Magic Gibbs.
They killed him. You killed my baby brother!
He's weird in this one. He's a little weird at times.
And what do you mean
I
by magic? What do you mean by weird Magic Gibbs?
Well, he gets in the trunk of the car. He's a weird Magic Gibbs.
Okay. Do you want to just leave it at that?
He's got a gut instinct that goes way beyond the gut. And why do you think it's called Jeopardy?
Actually, I don't know.
What do you think? Okay, well, let's go to magic. What do you think about Abby using tarot cards?
Tarot, the ancient art of divination.
Guys, I've got something.
Oh, okay. So this is the interesting thing. I caught that because at the end, you turn the card and it's the death card.
Yeah.
And it's a foreshadow for what's to come. Because it's the end of season 3. We still have 2 episodes. This is episode 22, season 3. We still have 23 and 24.
Hiatus parts 1 and 2.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a big Jenny Shepard arc.
It is, but we blow up Gibbs with Pin Pin Pula.
Yes.
I mean, it's a crazy thing. Heroin, kidnapping. And I really think it's a Ziva-centric episode in a lot of ways.
And that's when I struck him.
How?
With my fist.
Where?
In the jugular.
No?
Yes, I mean, look, I had a little bit of like a moment with this episode because obviously I don't think she did, she killed him on purpose. I think she did something, and I think it leaves a little bit of a doubt. You know, it plants the seed of, did she do it? Did she not do it? Obviously, it was not intentional, you know?
I think this is a feature of season 3 in a way, because you would say, at one point, right, you say, there was a time when I would have killed this person, but this is not that time. And so what's interesting is that you're saying you didn't do it, but you're not saying you're incapable of doing it. And in previous episodes, you have revealed like that you would, for instance, sleep with somebody to get information because it was a tool at your disposal, you know?
Yes. And I think we have actually discussed that in Off Duty. And I think there's a lot of play there too, because I think there's a lot of things that she's throwing at you to see how they land, because obviously she's studying you the entire time. She's sort of like seeing who this guy is. And there is like innate, and she understands, she's almost playing into this kind of like frat boy Americana persona that she like, and she loves just toying around. It's like a little kitty with a just like just playing. And she just loves watching you. So there are times that I watch these episodes, and it's been a while, in which I really ask myself, how much of this truly is real? And there's not a doubt in my mind that she's done things that have been questionable, but how much of what actually comes out of her mouth, especially in season 3, in regards to, for example, all of the sexual banter between them, is real, or it's just, trying to get a reaction off you, or trying to plant the seed of something, because, it is very funny to watch you deal with. I mean, your reactions are really great.
She was a good agent.
Oh, whoa.
Hey, clock's ticking, people.
Jenny can take care of herself, Gibbs. She was a good agent.
Still is.
Oh,
She
that's
was
the
a good
episode.
agent.
This is the episode, yeah.
I know. So talk a little bit. That's the last thing I wanted to get into in this synopsis is explain to the folks at home. She was a good agent.
Well, Gibbs is going up the stairs, and it's a reminder of, Shepard having been an agent at some point, and just reminding him that, hey, she can take care of herself, kind of thing. But it was a weird thing. You had kind of two ways of playing it, kind of quietly and introspective, which I was like, no. I was like, I need to be heard because he's all the way back there, and so I have to project. But in projecting, you guys found it hilarious that because it was played with sheer honesty and loud. I was like, hey, he's going away and he needs to hear this line. Like, he needs to be reminded that she can take care of herself.
Sean and I loved that reading of that line.
You guys gave me such crap for it. And then, of course, I had to say the line like 17 times, and every single time I said it, I would hear myself and I'd be like, I had such a crock of shit.
It was so
and I'd be
good.
like, oh, God. But it's because you guys made it like funny. Well, funny for me, And then, of course, I had to be like, find the truth in it. I'm not sure. Whatever. It was what it was. But until this day, we still talk about it. In fact, I woke up watching the episode and I texted you just that. She was a good agent. And that's it. That's where I left it. I didn't say anything else.
And what about when McGee was getting vulnerable with you? What did you think about that? And do you have any recollection of those scenes and what that was? Sean is such a good actor.
But after a while...
Are you trying to make me feel better?
Is it not working?
He's such a good actor. I just kept on thinking,
that vulnerability so well.
He can, and he goes down into a very sort of quiet, vulnerable place that very few people can actually do, and he does it so well, and he's got such a well of stuff in there that he can really, he can really tap into. But when I was watching it, I was like, he's sweet. Like, there's something about McGee in that moment that is truly sweet. Like, he's trying to somehow, like, let her know, like, hey, I know what you're going through, and he's just trying to extend a little bit of an olive branch and like, you're not alone. I've been through this. And she just kind of goes, she plays it cucumber cool. She's like, what are you talking? She's like, oh yeah, no, what? Like, no, it's cool. You know what I mean? But she also does something that I enjoy, which is when he walks away, she says, nobody ever doubted you, And in this particular episode, it's not like that with her, because people doubt her. They don't think she did it on purpose, but they also can't dismiss the fact that she did do something that could have potentially caused someone's death. And that's very tricky.
Do you know what I was getting? The vibes that I was getting, the feels?
Oh, God. What are the feels?
Well, the way that Sean interacted with Sasha on the show, he was super proby. And like, he always got caught looking up her skirt, but like, not because he was, but because it was an accident. And like, he would have her on his shoulders, and then he would look down again, or he would be under her desk fixing the cables for her computer, and she would sit down and then pull him up by the ear. He was always in a kind of uncomfortable, like, thing you know, in a lot of the Sasha moments. And she wasn't a scold, but it was like he was, but with you, and I feel like it's a meta kind of thing. You were the new actor on the show, whereas before that in the squad room, he was the probie. He was the new person on the NCIS set. He was the, you know, and he was learning how to navigate me and Harmon and Paulie and David and Billy Webb and everybody. And here you were, and I really felt so much honesty there. And I wondered, I mean, in that, did you feel that from Sean sometimes? Like he would come to you, and did he ever say like, these guys, it can be so much, and I understand, or because he feels like that to me in the scene.
No, I don't know if because to tell you the truth, my first year there with all of you was such a great year to me that I don't think I needed to be sort of picked up. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think there was a moment there where somebody really needed to like pull me aside and say like, hey, I know this is hard, but like, you know, I mean, I was like literally like on a roller coaster ride, like going, and just like kind of like loving it. So like no one's gonna pull me aside and tell the girl who's got her mouth open going like having a ball, go like, hey, by the way, like we know that it's hard. Like somebody would be like, shut up. You know,
well, you did have the one where, you know, you went over to the Ducky's autopsy and they wanted to,
I thought the same thing as I'm telling the story. I had one moment, and that one moment truly was about something else. It wasn't about like working with such crazy people. It was more about like, hey, I got hit with the reality of unit, you know, of second unit and what that was. And it was my first time. And that's how I learned my lesson. And then, you know, I checked every single time, and I just made sure that I was like completely ready.
Well, I just think there are a lot of moving parts in this season, but particularly in this episode as we kind of tee up Pin Pula with all kinds of strange harbingers with the tarot cards and everything else. But it is.
Have you ever done tarot cards?
No.
Never in your life. Like no one's ever come up to you and they're like, oh, Michael, let me just throw some cards in.
Not that I remember. I did have a palm reading at a place called Raoul's on Prince Street in New York City in Soho. Great restaurant.
Was it like when you were in your early 20s or something?
I was in my late 20s.
Okay.
And I was going through a little bit of a spell, a little bit of a spot. Mm-hmm. And this palm reader woman, it was upstairs at Raoul's next to the restroom. She had a little table set up. And she read my palm and talked to me. And then she wrote down, you know, a paragraph and asked me for my address. And I said, what do you mean? And I gave her my address in California. And 2 years later, I got a letter from someone in New York City, and I opened it, and it was from the palm reader.
Get out.
Yeah.
And wait, may I please ask?
Yes. So I was going through a very dark period, as you do, Cote, with just to sort of the end of the innocence of my optimism in the beginning of my career and some personal stuff. And when I met the palm reader, I was really struggling. And the palm reader, but when I got this, I had just gotten back from shooting, I think the pilot maybe of Dark Angel, and I had been working nonstop. And a lot of things were happening. A lot of new things in my life were happening. And the paragraph said, you are now entering a very extraordinary phase of your life, and you will have huge success. Please remember how bad you felt on whatever it was, 1998, and take with you some forgiveness for who you were, and that will help you become who you can become. It was like that kind of thing. It was all about, It was all about making sure you had the humility.
Sensei. I mean, it was, that's pretty.
Yeah. And what was really crazy is that I was on my way to do an interview with James Posniak, or I think was writing for Time magazine. And I think I was going to James Cameron's, house out in Malibu, and like things had gotten about as crazily different as me sleeping on the floor of my friend's apartment shooting an independent movie in New York, and crying myself to sleep at night because I was a little sad.
And this is coming from somebody that doesn't believe in that stuff, but ironically, what a remarkable story.
Yeah. I believe in some of it.
Yeah, I think you do.
Wash your mouth out with purple soap. Cassie. Wow. Gibbs, is that you playing Teletubby?
Anthrax scares the hell out of me, may I? Hannah Lowell's been arrested at more protests than Jesse Jackson. She won't be intimidated. Stricken rambling, flashing peace signs. When she bared her breasts and shouted, "Make love, not war," I drove straight here. Seems like a frat boy on the surface, but the guy's brutal. Today's a real bad day to be the director of NCIS, Officer David. And every scheduled flight... No, today's flight plans. Where do I sit?
It's because...
Cassie Yates!
How long has it been?
Oh my God, 5 million years?
I think it's almost been like 17 years and you look exactly the same. What the hell?
As do you guys, fuckers, pardon my French.
That's okay. We swear on this fucking show.
Hey, you know what? You got to jump right off.
Can we just say right from the beginning, because you are such a veteran of so many shows and you've worked with everyone and you've done everything under the sun and you're cool beans, but can we just say every show is different?
Yes.
Every set is its own little mix. It's its own potpourri.
Melange.
But you came onto our show and I remember immediately saying, "Oh my God, please, can she stay? Please, can
I said the same thing. I said exactly
Tamara
the same
and
thing.
Tamara and Tamara. Can she be here for all of our Tamaras?"
Oh,
I only
my
wanted,
God.
and I don't know if you felt that at the time, but when your name came up with this, I was like, no way. This would be the best. Did you feel that sense of like that you could play and have fun, or was it a guest star thing that because you did multiple episodes, but
yeah. Well,
How many did you do, by the way?
Because
we were just having this conversation.
Two. I think it's funny because I was looking at Sealed with a Kiss, which was like, I think first season. Was it first season? That was my first episode. And then I think this one, and that was it. But I absolutely felt welcomed. And I always joked that when I walked on this set, it felt like you guys had no clue that you were on a hit show, just like the nicest human beings on planet Earth, out in like, whatever, like how far in the boondocks.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys were just all so easy and lovely. And dude, I wanted to stay. Absolutely. Unfortunately, I think I had some long-lived pilot that, took me away. And
I remember there being complications because you were such a natural, easy, you're you, and you knew how to sort of be water and roll down with the whole thing. But also, yeah, but you also had this innate sense of where the funny was and then flipping it into the drama and knowing when to get your shit together, but also throwing on a red dress and looking fantastic or whatever that outfit was.
And also like not overplaying anything, which is really hard to do. Like just kind of throwing a lot of the stuff away and making it really kind of easy peasy, like conversational. And, it's hard stuff sometimes. Like I was looking at the scenes you had with Gibbs today, like right in front of the plasma, and how you're delivering all that exposition and how you're also making really interesting choices and your looks. And
any of this can help me find the director?
Probably not. Wish I could tell you I had someone inside his organization.
You never flipped an informant?
I was hoping to flip his brother. Obviously, that's never going to happen.
But it was all very subtle, which we liked. So you were just right there, like playing it right before you got scooped up by Bones, right?
I know. When I saw you pop up on Bones, and I said, I said to Boreanaz, I said, you know what?
Damn it.
I know you're a TV stalwart who's made lots and lots of television, and you will probably continue making it for the rest of your life, but you got real lucky. Now, We were lucky to have you for the period of time that we did. But if you don't have to play this game. But
I will.
When you go from our kind of, procedural drama, investigative Marine Corps, dead Marine somewhere in a park somewhere, Rock Creek Park. You got Daddy Gibbs running around doing his, and you have the team and the quirky team with Ducky in the basement with the bodies and oh yeah, I love it. You got a panther. You're at a zoo. But then when you get over to Bones, you have the same, procedurals are procedurals in the sense that there's a body, there's and Emily's doing, the Ducky
forensic anthropology. Exactly. Yeah.
It's just a slightly, it's a shifted focus. It's a slightly different hierarchy dynamic in terms of the team. But I'm curious in your compare contrast, if you were to write us a college essay.
Okay. Oh dear. I dropped out in 10th grade. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll try.
I am also a dropout. So Cody's the only one here with the MFA.
Ooh, okay. We're impressed immediately. Okay, so I have to write an essay. I'm going to try this.
Yeah, a little compare contrast, like the things that are the same, the things that are different.
With Bones and NCIS, I would say I think that they were like oddly similar. I think we just had gooier, scarier bodies. But I think what you guys did really well and why I wanted to stay and make you guys my forever family was because there was a camaraderie and a chemistry like in between all of the procedural, like terrifying dialogue, like endless dialogue. You guys were, swapping barbs. You were playing and you were being human and talking about your dating lives and what's going on and who had what for dinner and movies and in between all of this like intense drama, which I think is, one of the things that made your show sing, and I think one of the things that made Bones sing was that we would just be over like a gooey decomposing body talking about, our love lives.
How was your schedule? I mean, you did, I think I saw like 200 and something.
Dude, yeah.
I'm so curious, who did you lock onto? Were there people, performers of any kind, that you saw as like, oh, that's a North Star for me. Like, I think I see what they're doing.
Inspiration. I think my first sort of, and this is not necessarily very actory, but I was at a commercial audition and some casting director said, gosh, doesn't she remind you of Audrey Hepburn a little bit? Because I had like like super short hair. And I was like, Audrey Hepburn, who's Audrey Hepburn? Oh, yeah. And I went home and watched I watched one of her films. I think I watched Breakfast at Tiffany's, and that was it. She became my like a number one inspiration. Just, I don't know. I liked her quality, her honesty for a time, where those movies, there was a certain affect, and she seemed to sort of transcend that a little bit. She gave like just the right amount of everything. And so she was the first, sort of my first love. I would say actually, and oddly, Diana Ross in Mahogany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like when I was little, I went to see a double bill of Mahogany and Lady Sings the Blues. And I remember thinking, it was the first time I'd seen a brown woman that remotely looked like me on screen. And I was riveted. So strange influences.
I was at the 2019 Masters golf tournament, interesting name for a golf tournament, in Augusta, Georgia. And the final twosome going off on that day, well, there was a threesome because there was an Italian guy who actually was in the lead that day, but it was Tony Finau and Tiger Woods walking down the 18th. And I was with Chris Jackson, who I was doing bull with at the time.
Okay.
And Chris was, he stopped and he like had this moment. He was getting emotional. And I was like, dude, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. What's going on? And he goes, you don't understand. Those guys, like, that's big. And I was like, I don't even see it, right? Because I'm like living in my own little world. And it's just so interesting to me that you point that out, because I think that how have you felt about do you feel like the industry has shifted? Do you think there's been a reprioritization of that there's been a kind of awakening, which is
we're going to stay away from the other word.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
But I think that word got co-opted by a lot of other people.
Did you see Bill Burr talking about it? He was like, who was your black friend that gave those folks that word?
Right.
Bad.
But I'm curious how if you feel like the industry has given us because we live in the most, if you work in it long enough, it's so cynical, and everybody is so money driven, power driven, and bottom line driven. And then they'll add the dressing, the garnishes of like political
creativity.
correctness.
They pretend that the creatives are matter.
Right. But have you felt like a systemic shift, like a big tectonic shift?
I feel like there has definitely been a shift. I think in a number of different ways. When I first landed, and Cody, to speak to your point of like going to the grueling auditions where I was just like horrible. But doing it anyway until I finally booked something. But I would walk in, and these were the days when, Spike Lee films, were like a deal, a thing. And I remember going into these auditions over and over again, and casting directors, and I always felt like it was a code word. I do my read, and I don't have any sort of American regional dialects. I'm Canadian, So they'd go, can you do it more urban?
Right.
And I was like, okay. And at first I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, oh, you mean you want to, okay. All right, cool. But like, I had no clue how to do that dialect. It was as ridiculous as asking me to do a slave dialect. It was not as ridiculous, as difficult as asking me to do a slave dialect. And that's kind of how I landed, they didn't know where to put me. So I became doctor, lawyer, teacher, cop, doctor, lawyer, teacher, because they were like, well, she speaks the Queen's English and we don't know, she's never going to play a hooker or a crackhead, which I proved them wrong. But it has changed because I don't hear she's not urban enough anymore. And I also don't perpetually read for the best friend role. And Cody, I don't know if this happened to you. I was always the best friend, not the lead, not the romantic lead, just a reading for the best friend.
It's funny because I as I'm listening to your story, I remember, do you remember that we had the pilot season, that doesn't happen anymore because you're constantly doing shows and you're constantly auditioning for shows. So there's no pilot season per se anymore. But I do remember during that time, I used to tell my agency, hey guys, I'm going to go visit my family. And that meant code for I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to enjoy myself because I was going to South America. So it was it was totally opposite. So I was going from New York, which was like wintertime and snow and, all that and very cold. And I would go to South America and it was hot and everyone was running around in a bikini and everyone. So I used to come back and I was so tan. And that's the thing with me. Like I can go from various shades of color.
Yeah,
and if
exactly.
I go really, really tan, my olive skin just absorbs the sun. And I remember when I would come back, I would be like a different shade of brown and I would go super tan. And my casting, and apparently the note from casting was like, we have no idea where she's from. Like, we can't cast her. Like, we don't know.
Racially ambiguous.
Where is she from? We thought she was Czechoslovakian, but now we're like, is she from Brazil? Like, we just don't know, Yeah. And I was like, and in my head, I guess I never quite understood what that meant. And I was like, why does it even matter? Like the important thing.
That's what it came down to me.
Well, and also, but I guess this is where my sort of naivete and ignorance and sort of like, I never saw myself as anything other than an actor and probably at times the right actor. And so I was just like, I never, I guess what I'm trying to say is I never really dwelled on anything other than I'm not even going to think of that because I don't even know what that means. And I just kind of kept going. You know what I mean?
I think you and I did the same thing. And that's
because
probably,
I was just like, I'm not even going to try to understand this because I don't. Yeah. And I think actually that was a great big thing for a person like me because, and this is something that Michael and I have talked about, you know, when, let's say, like if a director was making a pass at me or something like that. And I was also, again, very naive and very much like, oh, wow, they're so nice. And I would, it would go like it would just go right over my head. And so in many ways, I think this slight naive, protected me in many ways. I just kind of kept on going for the bigger objective, which is like, I was just chasing the carrot.
I think that attitude actually informed the kinds of roles that we got. Instead of going, how do I fit into this teeny tiny little niche that they've given, and it's so small. How can we all fit in here? Instead of doing that, I think we just continued to do us. And I remember, not to be a name droppy D-canoe, but early on, I think when I had gone to see a play with Lawrence Fishburn, and I think I was doing commercials, and I don't know why even, but he took me aside and he said, don't worry, they'll make space for you. Just keep being who you are. And I was like, wow.
Well, he must have seen something in you that just, he must have seen something in you that he was like, I need to tell her how special she is.
It's almost like Spirit. Spirit knows what you need to hear.
And not to lose any kind of hope or faith because you are that good and you are that special that they will make the space for you. And that's a beautiful thing to hear from somebody that's also been in the business for such a long time. It must have encouraged you, did it not?
It was a godsend because I was terrified that I just wasn't the right flavor, wasn't the right color, wasn't the right whatever. And that part of you says, no, but I think that just being me is probably everything. It's worth its weight in gold. But, in your 20s, you're like, it's definitely growing pains.
Michael and I were just doing press abroad. And I remember at one point, I think we were having like a dinner with some, old NCIS family peeps that we love. And I remember turning around to him and I said something like, God, do you remember when you were in your 20s? And he was like, yeah. And I said, would you ever want to go back there? And we both had this like immediate response. We were like, oh my God, no.
No,
and
never.
I think it goes back to that thing where you're saying, like, I think your 20s are such a flavorful time because you're so full of every emotion. Like, you're so full of like, well, who am I? And who do I have to be? And how do I accommodate? And how do I fit in? And how do I
what do I like? And what do I not like?
Yeah,
what am I going to keep?
How do I define myself? And do I define myself? And, all of those things that I think are so wonderful for that time, but they're also... like, who wants to do that again?
It was Mark Harmon in the very beginning of NCIS who talked about this right when we were doing the pilot, even when we were doing the Jag-offs, because we were a spinoff of Jag. Sorry, that's the...
I was like, what?
we were the spinoff of Jag.
Okay. Oh, my gosh. How amazing. I totally forgot that because you guys, not to be a jerk, but like you guys soared.
Right. No, but I mean, Jag was like, thank God for Jag. But when we were doing it, Mark wanted it. Jag was very formal, presentational. All the shots were locked off. Everything was an American flag snapping in the background. And it was very old school television. And the way that Bellisario and Harmon and all these guys, Billy Webb and everyone that was involved in structuring the new version of the Jag spin-off, Jag-off. So that was supposed to be disruptive. So you're not going to get that. We're going to punk that. And what Harmon was saying is like that he had learned on some movies, and he talked about some different actors that he'd worked with where they would be talking the whole, like the way we're talking now, while they're slating, while we're like pictures up, rolling, slating, and the director's like, guys, focus, and then all of a sudden it just rolls right into the scene. And I'm like, what the fuck? And
Yeah.
And Harmon said that if if we can bring that sense of sort of, I don't know what you're going to say next, because it almost feels like you're not presentationally putting forward the plot elements as written by somebody in a writer's room, that's been okayed by the network and the studio.
Exactly.
Suddenly we were doing this thing, and it kind of
that feels exciting. It feels
gave
exciting.
birth to something. And I have to really credit all those guys.
But I think it latched on to that very loosey-goosey energy that I think the show kind of found, that very kind of like, we've
that's
been
a hard
doing this
thing
for a
to
while,
find.
and then the camera finds you,
Yeah.
As opposed
But
to
it's a hard thing to create out of sort of whole cloth. Like, you don't know what a TV show is going to be when you shoot the pilot. You're looking around and you're like, I don't know how many pilots you've done. Have you done
Oh my gosh. I've done many. And actually the pilot that took me away from, your show literally got canceled after like 5 episodes. I was like, damn it, I should have stayed. But yeah, you don't have any sense of what's going on in the pilot. You guys barely have, I think, let me reframe that. Sometimes the writing is so specific, and because you just got that magic cast, and I feel like you guys had it, I feel like Bones, it's funny, first season is always weird, but most of the actors have a sense of their characters, like everyone's coming in clearly defined. And I feel like your show, everyone was so clearly defined. The contrast of characters was so delicious. Everybody was idiosyncratic. They all had their own thing. And then Mark as the sort of...
Yeah, and if you watch the very beginning, he's not that.
Really?
It actually, it shifted over the course of the first...
He was the one who was like spewing all the movie references, right?
Yeah, he was a sort of a different character. He was more of like a charming Harmon, kind of like finger gunning his way around. Like, I mean, he wasn't as game show host as I am, but he was definitely not the stoic Clint Eastwood style, dude. I think that Mark was bridging a little period in his life, 40s into 50s, with kids of a certain age. And he had done the great arc on West Wing, where he played like a Secret Service person who was hanging out with Allison Janney's character. And then his last episode, he leaves her and he goes into a grocery store, and there's a robbery, and he gets shot and killed at the end of the episode. And it's a great West Wing episode. But I think that is when Don Bellisario saw Harmon and went, who's that guy? Like, I've seen Mark Harmon in lots of things. Mm-hmm. And so this goes to sort of the next phase, like if we do the career chronography kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are these phases in your career. There are these like gears and different times. There's times when you feel vibe and flow, and you're like, and then there's times where you're like, I can't believe that I hate this so much. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, it's only happened to me a little bit, but boy.
Have you ever been in something that you don't have to say what, obviously, but have you ever been in something that you were like, okay, I think this is, I'm kind of reevaluating my love for this thing that had defined me for so long?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And to the degree that, they're when it's not good when you're crying in your trailer.
Yes.
And again,
this is why
all the way to the bags of money, but still.
Yeah. And this is why I remember having the conversation about like that existential moment when I was like, what do you mean? Am I still this? And she was like, it's fine. You're always going to be an art. You know what I mean? It was just nice to be reminded. But I think every single actor has that moment. And I think it's really good to talk about it, because if there are youngins out there listening, just know that
it happens to all of us.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah. And you're like, okay.
So
it's like one bad apple doesn't mean they're all bad.
I'm going to hit you with the NCIS stuff now. And this will be I'm going to have you put on your AI Wayback Machine, try and configure yourself back through the mists of time.
Okay.
It's been a tick or a talk since we've been there. So
it's been a couple of years, let's just say.
So do you, because you talked about Santa Clarita and being out there in the sort of, I said, we were sort of shooting on the surface of the sun. It's like, just drive towards the sun and you'll find it. But do you remember any part of the initial process? Do you remember any particular bits of the shooting process? You talked about, some other jobs and things, but I'm just curious because our NCIS audience is going to want to hear if you have any sort of delicious things.
Absolutely. Well, my first episode was Sealed with a Kiss, and I think I spent most of my time with Mark and Polly. And like I said, I walked on set. I think Polly popped out of her trailer, immediately gave me a hug, said, "Do you love animals? I love animals. I'm an animal rescue."
It sounds like Pete.
I was like, oh my God, I immediately love you. How many animals do you have in that trailer at the moment? So immediately fell in love with her, was completely blown away by how kind and warm Mark was. We just sat shooting the shit in between takes. And I was just blown away because it felt like you guys, it's always really intimidating to come into an already established family. And there was such a warmth and a welcome that I hadn't experienced on any other set, truthfully. And then the second time I came back, Cody, you were there. And I remember I stole one of your phrases. You were like, "We're going to smooth jazz it. We're smooth jazzing it." And I was like,
smooth jazzing it, baby.
And that's when I got to be with you guys in the pen or whatever it was. Like we were actually in on that set all day, and I got to play with you guys, and I was like, oh man.
It's very funny because we, again, going back to this little trip we just did with Michael, we revisited sort of the idea of working with different directors and how people sometimes make you feel really welcomed and loved. And some people work from a place of fear where everything has to be sort of questioned, and then they need to reduce you to nothing in order to sort of feel like they're like shaping the clay and somehow they're going to get the artistic side of you to shine, right?
We were talking about how that's that way.
Yeah, no, and I think in that conversation, we realized that most people don't work well that way. And I think it was Harmon at a very early start of the show to kind of set the tone for that. He was very kind to guest actors, and it just went all the way down from number one. Not that we didn't feel that way also, but I think we were also very far away from all of the studios, the big studio stuff. So for us, guest actors were like the life that would infuse this show, not only from an actoral and like a TV series episodic thing, but quite frankly, you guys were the ones that were coming from outside
new
world.
Kids to play with.
Exactly. You guys, we had our playground, we had our friends, they were all our friends, but every once in a while we were bombarded with like 5 or 6 or 7 new kids. And so for us, it was like, and it was like, it was just so much fun to get that energy. So we really felt like, oh my God, we get to we get new friends. And so that's how we approached it. And we were just so happy to have new energy. And we felt that if by any chance we were, lacking energy, or you could always feed off these people that were coming from the outside world full of like new ideas and new energy. And they would just come from maybe another set or like another experience. And we'd be like, we were at that set, which was very far away from all of the other studios.
It really was. And I wonder if that was a gift, like a gift disguised as
I think it was shooting like in a little bit of a bunker, without it sounding dreary at all.
No, it was beautiful out there. It was just in the middle of nowhere.
And it was in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't get to see actors at all. So it was just...
Okay, here's what we have to do right now. We have to all make a promise with each other.
Okay.
Let's talk to John McNamara. Cassie Yates has to run the CIA or something, right?
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. Oh, that would be so cool.
Come to Budapest. Come to Budapest.
With us.
Oh, I'm being drawn. Well, that would be so cool, guys.
It would be great. And this, I have to say, has just been... I can remember your presence, the way that you sort of remember, like, I don't know, like a great holiday or a great Christmas morning or something, like your energy and light and presence. And anytime, as it always happens when Bones is just randomly on some friggin' TV when I check into a hotel or I go into a gym.
Every single time I'd see that show, I would go, they took her. They took her.
Well, and every time I would see you guys, I was like, okay, I'd be in the grocery line and see you guys on the cover of like everything. And I have to say, in all honesty, every single time I was like, I am so happy for them. Again, the people that have no clue that they're on this badass hit show, the most beautiful humans I've ever worked with. I literally like cheered every single time I saw you guys get your flowers. It was just like,
well, our Mutual
people that
Admiration
deserve it.
Society session. Let's do this. I think we should do this every Tuesday.
Yes, please.
It makes me feel
Tuesdays
good.
at 8. Tuesdays at 8.
I like this. It'll be like, it's sort of like our little weekly meeting, just to sort of support group, but also to help us move forward through relationships, the career. Next week, we're going to talk about food and our relationship with food.
I love that.
I'm going to get reflexology today, so to help my constipation from traveling. Too much information?
Oh, you know what? That is not unusual. Have you tried the squatty potty at all, or?
Oh yeah.
The what?
The squatty potty.
Oh God, you guys.
Okay, all right.
Potty.
Okay, tune in next week for the Squatty Potty with Tamara Taylor, Cody DePablo, and Michael Weatherly. Squatty Potty this fall on CBS. Can we unpack for a second? And we've talked about it a little bit, but Ziva, and really this has happened over the course of the series. Like Ziva is accused of killing someone or being involved in something that's highly, I mean, look how Ziva came into the whole show to begin with and what her half brother, got up to 23 episodes ago or whatever the hell it was. I mean, it's, this, we talk about this gray area, the gray house you live in. And we talk about how that moral ambiguity surrounds a lot of your character. And a lot of Gibbs this year has been between these lines.
Anything could have precipitated his death. A cough, a sneeze,
a blow to the throat.
What's your feeling about that? And then as we move through it, like open that up.
Well, you know what? I have thoughts about it because Ziva does come from a rather violent past. And I do think she's had to do things that are at times questionable. However, I do think she has a good moral compass, if there's such a thing. I don't think she's going to cross the line to where it's like red zone, but I do think there's a lot in the gray zone, which, by the way, we've discussed about Gibbs too, that he does in order to accommodate for his value system. Which is, it's funny because you told me not long ago to watch a movie that was called The Beekeeper. Remember?
Yes.
And there's a line in The Beekeeper at the end of the movie. He goes, remember, is it going to be law or is it going to be justice? He goes, differentiate law or justice. And it spoke to me about this particular thing with Gibbs and with Ziva. I think they have that moment when they go, am I going to be on the side of law or am I going to be on the side of justice?
Yes. And it's like truth and honesty that we were talking about at one point very recently.
Sure.
And it's like, just because I'm telling you the truth doesn't mean I'm being honest. I mean, there's a quality inside all of this grayness. You can use facts and truth as a cudgel, as a hammer, as a weapon, as a tool, but it can also set you free, right? So there's this beauty to it, but no thing is one thing. And, I guess that's why people like holy books so much, because we have characters who are met with impossible decisions, the Sophie's choice of whatever it is. How do you align yourself with that decision? How do you make it right for yourself in this moral universe that you've constructed? And I think that's besides the fact that Ziva's just kick-ass. I think that because you emanate from that place, you take us on the journey through the kind of underworld of that moral complexity. I don't think DiNozzo has this,
I think she's a good person, I think, and this is where I can say that most of the NCIS characters, if not all NCIS characters from the original Mothership, I think they're good people. Like if you were to sort of deconstruct them and
not Trent Court.
Well, no, but you know, no, and that's a really good distinction, because I do think that maybe there's something that's a little skewed in that particular character, but in this dysfunctional family, I think everyone has good intention, and I think that's where the difference is. I think the intention is always good. The intention is not to do the wrong thing. I think the intention is to do the right thing. I think sometimes things get a little complex. And then you go into the law versus justice. Like, what is the law versus what is the justice? And where do you find the good?
Yeah.
And how can you somehow negotiate that into doing the good?
I love Elvis Costello.
I know you do.
And it just takes me to this song off of an album called Imperial Bedroom. And I would urge anyone who doesn't know Elvis Costello's Imperial Bedroom to put on the first song, which is called Beyond Belief. And keep going with that song, and you will be right in the middle of a Ziva David moral complexity. It's all about the clock ticking while you're trying to figure out your heart. You know, it's logic and feeling. It's this battle between the thing we know to be the fact, but then the thing we know to be true, you know, and these two things aren't always in alignment. And we have to make these impossible decisions between them. Anyway, I'm going far too deep.
Wait, no. This is this is a really good thing, because you and I had talked, and there's a line, actually, maybe it's an NCIS, in some episode, the heart wants what it wants. I think it becomes an NCIS line.
Well, Woody Allen said it about marrying Soon-Yi Previn.
Well, I mean, that's a completely different thing, but
I'm just saying that I remember that was a thing. It was like in Time magazine.
I never even put the two and two together, but the heart wants what it wants, and the idea of, well, and then also,
well, we're talking about moral complexity, so let's go there.
Well, there you go. How about we move on?
Okay.
Do it.
What are we going to do?
We're going to do a little game time.
What's it called?
I don't know. You tell me.
Dead criminal. In this episode, Brian Dempsey, a drug-dealing criminal, dies in an elevator, and we never learn if it was by Ziva David's hand or due to a random illness. Regardless of who killed him, the unfortunate Dempsey is far from the only criminal that ends up dead in this season of NCIS. Well, that's for sure. In this game, Michael and Cote will hear names of dead criminals from this season and try to answer how they died and who killed them and in which episode. This isn't fair, because it's like, I feel like I should have primed myself. But you know what? Maybe it is fair. Okay, I like not being primed. So, Cote,
okay, go.
What we're going to do is this is the name of a dead criminal, and you try to say how they died, who killed them, and in which episode. Okay, I'm serious. Now, don't look at your page. Don't look at your page.
Okay, but I'm going to suck at this. No, I'm just going to tell you, because
I know that's the whole point.
Oh, God, you just love seeing this.
Caesar
just
Bernal.
Flat on my face.
Who is Caesar Bernal? Now, is that the one, I'm just going out on, was it like he was part of a gang and we went into the inner city and we brought him in and we were trying to like convince him that he was but he was like, wait till you talk to the boss, because the boss is.
Oh, wait a minute. I remember this guy. I remember the actor. I don't remember his name immediately, but I know him. He was so good.
Okay, well, let's read the answer. He is shot repeatedly at close range and thrown in a dumpster by his gang, La Vida Mala. Yes, iced. I think that's true. Oh, you're going to know this one. Don't, just stop.
Okay, I'm not, I haven't looked.
Don't look.
I haven't looked.
Carter Finch. He may have liked collectibles.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He liked the furry stuff.
Yes, Carter Finch. Now,
yeah,
Carter Finch.
He was in one of our favorite episodes where the camera went like this, and that was directed by Dennis Smith.
Yes, and Carter Finch is, in the incredible way that this show has left really no stone unturned. Like, there's Lily Tomlin, there's
my God.
You can go all the way around. Carter Finch, everybody. Has anyone ever watched the movie The Descendants? Well, if you have, you know that Nate Faxon, who played Nat Faxon, sorry, who played Carter Finch in this, and Jim Rash and Alexander Payne won an Academy Award for that screenplay. So not only is Carter Finch the answer to this question and The Voyeur's Web, directed by Dennis, Carter Finch, we would have nailed this one. Okay, how about this one? Abag Ghalib. We don't care. Abag. Someone in my ear just said, "How did he die?" And to the audience at home, I'm like, he was stabbed to death in a bathtub. I mean,
and
whatever.
The best part is like, I write my own rules. These are my games. I rewrite the rules every step of the way.
Talk about a morally ambiguous universe. There's no rules on this one. Abag Ghalib. Okay, now,
God, now we're going into the Pimpimpula universe.
Oh, very good. You
Can
remembered
you say Pimpimpula
Abag
5 times?
Pimpimpula, 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 Pimpimpula.
There you go, 5 times. Pimpimpula, 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 Pimpimpula. 6, I think that was. Pimpimpula.
I want some Pimpimpula. By the way, do you and I...
Keeping it real.
No,
That's
listen.
intense.
Hold on. You and me, can we start a line of spirits? What do we want it to be? Either a tequila or a mezcal or something, and we're going to call it.
Oh my God! If you were at a bar, and you said a shot straight up Pimpimpula, please. Can I have a shot of Pimpimpula?
Can I get some Pimpimpula? Are we on this? All right.
Please?
Before this
With
airs, we're going to lock it down with the domain. I'm going to get the Pimpimpulin.com. Get the out of my way because it's happening. Dr. Elaine Burns.
Ooh, I remember this one. No. This is the Ducky. This is the Ducky episode.
Yes, it
is.
You're better at it than you thought.
Civil Wars.
Okay, and how did she die?
A knife to her heart because Ziva David threw it.
See, when you do the killing, you know how to clean up in this
I
game.
know how to clean up. Silver Wars, not Civil Wars. Silver Wars. It was about the Civil Wars. Yeah. I remember those.
Should we do fan questions?
We should absolutely do fan questions.
Do you want to read them or you want me to read them?
I will read them. So Sandra from Rockford, Illinois. Great scene with the corpse being popped up in the car. How was that executed?
Which way? Which way?
You're driving straight into an airplane hangar.
Can you be a little more specific, please? Which way?
Make a left. Now go straight.
Well, we had a terrific actor. He was terrific. He was in the opening scene of this episode, and I remember shooting that. That was a Jimmy Whitmore episode, and he was so game. He was so alive. He was so full of that like cocky angst. It was so great. And by the way, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're just setting him up. And then I forget that he dies in the elevator. And then I thought, oh God. And then they cast his brother, who was really, really good too.
Yeah.
Overall, what would you say? Oh, wait. Overall, what would you say this episode was in your? If you had to give it a Jimmy Palmer, how many Jimmy Palmers would you give it?
It's a good one.
I have to say, it's a really good one. I really enjoyed it. I was watching it this morning, and I was like,
8.5 heads.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8.5, a 9. You know, I can't believe I'm being. It's up there. It's up there with the good ones. I have to say, there's a lot of really good kind of character stuff there. You know, it's fun. I think best Sue. Well, he's at his best.
How about Elliot from Portland, Maine?
Go ahead, read it.
I don't know why, but Gibbs stuffing himself in the trunk of a car just seems a little out of character. What are your thoughts? And what were some scenes on the show where you felt were out of character for Tony and Ziva? You know, that's interesting. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think it's out of character at all. I think Gibbs is, you know, we've discussed it with Jesse Stern, and, you know, there's a magic element to Gibbs, which we have to understand. You know, this show is not about superheroes and we're flawed and all that stuff, or at least we've always fought for that. But, you know, remember also, he's going to rescue Jenny's shepherd. You know, that was like a big part of his life. And it's something that is inconclusive in the way that they explore that particular relationship. You know, it's still very passionate between them. You know, even if it's not happening, it's still very passionate. And also there is a power struggle constantly, and the respect of where they are right now, presently in life. And so it's a complex thing, but I think they play it really well.
There's something I was thinking about this, which is only because when you're in the episode, we were tired. It is the end of the year.
It's episode 22. Yeah. We're about to do the last two.
We're gassed. We are just gassed. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, so wait, 2, 4, 6, 7. You know, my secret website that I like going to, A Year of NCIS, only gave it the 7 Jimmy Palmers.
Really? What about Rachel from Green Bay?
Oh, yes.
The Tiva McGee dynamic is interesting. Cody, what do you think Ziva was feeling when McGee was trying to comfort her and she kind of brushed it aside?
Mm-hmm. What did you think about that?
A really interesting thing, because I do believe that Ziva pushes things deep in, and there's a facade of, I got it, I'm cool, I'm in control, even if at times that is doubted. Obviously, in this episode, it's completely doubted. And then at the end of the episode, there's this lingering doubt. Did she kill him? And actually, was she a part of that thing? Was she a part of that thing that actually killed this guy? So she didn't intentionally kill him, but she did strike him in the neck, and he did have a genetic condition. And at the end, 2 people, Ducky and Jenny, they go natural causes. And Gibbs is the only one that kind of looks at them and he goes, so I don't know if there's a doubt that's planted in his, he knows it's not intentional.
But
he
you
knows
did
it's not
say,
intentional.
if this was years ago, I would have snapped his neck, but it's not, and I didn't.
Yes, it's true.
If this was years ago, I would have snapped his neck, but it's not, and I didn't.
Well, she didn't.
I mean,
she gave him what she thought was a little love tap. But that little love tap actually could have sent him over the edge.
What do you think about Abby losing her crime scene virginity?
Wow. After all these years, I'm finally losing my crime scene virginity.
Wow. I don't think that's ever been said before.
Oh my God, I thought it was a funny bit. But then, of course, it was funny because you made fun of it, you know? So
that one's weird. Because I kind of questioned the reality of that.
Well, I think they play on it a lot, actually, in the episode where Ducky's like, well, I think this is the shortest walk I've ever had to take to a crime scene. And everyone's kind of like, in a way, fascinated that they didn't really have to travel anywhere. You know, they didn't have to get in the truck to go anywhere, which, of course, it's part of the levity and the comedy of the show, you know, given the fact that this is not funny at all.
It's my favorite rule.
You beat me to it.
Say it.
Okay, wait. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Gibbs rule. Gibbs rule number 39.
There is no such thing as coincidence. And how did you beat me to it? Is it because you and I have been talking a lot about synchronicity, especially during the pandemic? Which is, by the way, why this entire idea of doing off-duty came about. Because we wanted a forum where we could have conversations about the things that you and I talk about, which is a lot of different things. And so we needed a structure. And so the structure became, hey, we can always riff on NCIS, and then we can latch onto concepts and then fly with them. And I think today there was a little of that.
Yeah, there's no such thing as coincidence.
No such thing as coincidence.
Which goes hand in glove with something that was in an episode of Dark Angel that my old-timey friend Chick Egley wrote, which is, of course, to borrow from the deep philosophy of the universe is always on time.
Yes, and isn't that funny? Because sometimes I've always questioned, can I just give a little insight to that? And it's personal.
It's a deep show today. Today's a deep show.
Yeah, well, it's very funny because I was having this conversation with my husband, and I used to always say how I was born late. And I mean that. There was always like this sense of I had to go fast. I had to accomplish my dreams fast. I remember graduating like at 21, 22 and feeling like I'm not where I want to be. And most people would be like, chill out, You're exactly where you need to be. And it took me such a long time to kind of stop the fast train in my mind of where I needed to be versus where I was.
Well, Cody DePablo, if you want to watch episodes of NCIS, NCIS LA, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS Sydney, NCIS Hawaii, NCIS Miami, NCIS Denver, NCIS Switzerland, you can go to the Swiss Navy and Paramount Plus, and you can watch yourself a whole ton of episodes. There's 1,000 episodes or more of the NCIS ship. The good ship. So go for a sail, would you? Next week on Off Duty, while talking to an undercover agent on a suspicious foreign ship, a bomb explodes, killing the agent Gibbs, leaving Gibbs in a coma. While comatose in the hospital, Gibbs remembers first wife and his daughter and their deaths, along with his wounding in Desert Storm, setting up the spinoff with Mark Harmon that would come 20 years later. Tony assumes temporary command, and the team searches for the mysterious Pin Pin Pula. Cody, say Pin Pin Pula 3 times as fast as you can.
Pin Pin Pula, Pin Pin Pula, Pin Pin Pula. I've been saying it, by the way, for I think 18 years, so I think I got that one.
Season 3, episode 23, hiatus part 1. Foo, foo.